Okay, well, it looks like we're live. It looks like we are live. Well, hello. I'm going to just go right ahead. Listen, my name is LaQuita Parks, and I am the host of The Power of Your Story. And we are here today. Listen, guys, we have been dealing with some technical difficulties. I can't even get it out my mouth right, but we're going to move right on. I have a special guest with me today. His name is Alan Black. And so you guys know me, but for those of you who don't, for the other millions of you who are tuning in today, I am LaQuita Parks and I am your host. I am the CEO and founder of, and she just gave a message and said it didn't start yet. So it says live and I'm just talking, but they'll edit it out. And so, okay, just let me know, Miss Trivia, when I should start talking. It happens.
It does.
It just happens. But what I was gonna say before we were just interrupted thinking that the broadcast started. My my little 1-year-old grandson, when his mom brought the baby, the 5-month-old little girl home from the hospital having a test. She had to have an MRI last week. And you know how they put the hospital band on the baby's ankle. She had to get an IV. So he came up and he was examining her, and he looked and
Really?
he saw the bracelet on her foot, and he did his mama like this and pointed. And she said Araya had to go to the doctor. She had to have some tests. This is her talking to the 1-year-old. She had to have some tests at the doctor today. He looked at her like this, turned around and walked away, as if to say this is not how she left home this morning. She didn't leave
Well,
home with some hole in her hand
well,
and a
come on,
bracelet on her.
somebody.
I know that's right.
Somebody.
He was just making sure his sister was okay. Like, okay, under my watch, this was not working, mama. So don't know what's going on here, but she did not come. She didn't leave this way this morning. And said, he's one. One.
Wow, that's
These,
scary.
these kids, what do they call them? I hear the commercial, these pandemic babies.
Oh, you know what? That's right. I never thought about that.
These pandemic babies are something else. My little 1-year-old Gabby, she is something else.
Oh, that's right.
She is something else. She's very, very smart. Her mom had some cards, and she said, "Where's red?" They were just color cards. Where's red? She picked the red one. Where's green? She picked the green one. I was like, amazing. They get it from their nana.
Of course they do. Of course.
Well, you know what? I don't know if we're still waiting or if we can go ahead and get started. But guess oh, she said it's live. So we're just having a conversation, y'all. We are just having a conversation about children.
Hey,
Hey, that's what we do. That is what we do. Um, Mr. Alan Black, it is so good to see you again. You listen, it's storming in parts of the world. I don't know where you guys are. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and Mr. Black, you are in
I'm
Nebraska,
in I'm
right?
in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska.
You
Yes.
in Omaha, Nebraska. Mr. Black, do you remember the question I asked you when you told me you was in Omaha, Nebraska?
Yeah, you were sort of like you got real quiet and you whispered, you said, "Y'all really up there? Is that true?" You were looking at me like, Where is this at again? It's the
Wait,
flyover part of the world, but you're like, y'all got folk up there? Yeah, and we got real
wait,
water too.
wait.
We got real water too.
Real water. Listen, we have got to get some exposure. That's one thing about this pandemic. It has enabled us to sit down and connect with people that we might not have otherwise connected with.
Exactly.
Because I don't know when I would be in Nebraska.
You won't be here in December or January, I can tell
I
you
will
that.
not. I will not, and probably won't be there in February or
No,
March either.
no,
So,
no, you won't be.
but having the opportunity to connect with people this way has been amazing because I have had the blessing and the honor of meeting people all over the world and to collaborate with people and work with people all over the world. And
Mm.
so, Alan, it is so, so good to see you again and talk to you again. And this time we're live. And listen, y'all, whatever y'all heard before we went live for real, then chalk it up to we knew what we was saying.
Yes, we did. Just real
We
folk
knew what we
having
were
real
saying.
conversations.
Real people, real conversations. You know what I'm saying? This is our story. This is our story. So I am so happy to. What have you been doing since we last talked? But wait, before we do that, tell the people who you are. We already know you in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. Tell them where you are and what you do, and let's get to it.
Well, as you said, Miss Parks, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, Omahane, Nebraska, which is the largest city in this state. It's not rural. We don't have cows walking up and down the streets or anything like that. The population is probably a little less than about a 500,000 when you throw in the suburbs and everything. So first of all, we want to get that out there because we even have some people that are around the country that have T-shirts that say, "Are there black folk in Nebraska?" Yes, there are. I know it shocks a lot of people, but yeah, we here.
We here.
So we want to get that out there first. And as far as who is Alan Black, born and raised here in Nebraska, I have lived in Nebraska, Illinois, Colorado, Georgia, spent some time in Texas, on the East Coast, before I eventually came back and settled here back home. So
No
I
place like home.
there's no place like home. I mean, Dorothy was correct when she said that in The Wizard of Oz. So certainly that is the case, I think, with all of us. So been here off and on for most of my life outside of my traveling and everything. What am I doing? Boy, that's a layered question because I was thinking about that this afternoon. I'm in the process now of course, getting the word out and trying to do interviews such as this one I'm honored to be able to do with my third book. I'm a Christian author. My third book is out now. It's an ebook available through my website, allentblack.com. And from there, you go to Amazon to get it. The third book is called Just a Closer Walk. And so this is the third book that I have been blessed to write. Well, let me take that back. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Ms. Parks, that this is something that I wrote. Basically, any and all of the content in each of these books has really been by the direction of the Holy Spirit because I truly had no intentions of writing any of these books. People have asked me, they said, well, so you set out to become a Christian author. Is this what you were petitioning the Lord to be blessed to be able to do? And I just tell them point blank, no. There was never any intent on my part to be a Christian author. My passion is for music because I'm the lyricist. I put the words into the music. So I've collaborated with genres from gospel to pop to hip hop to R&B, even done a little bit of country a couple of years ago as far as that concerned. So I create the story that you hear in the music. So that's my real passion. So I have been doing that probably since about, I think since about 75 or so. So those people who are counting, that goes back 47 years, something like that. So that, and then looking at my grade, so yeah.
I was a weekday.
Yeah, well, I was in college. I think I was a sophomore or junior at that time. So if people are trying to calculate, yeah, that puts me in my late 60s because I'm 67 now. I turned 67 at the end of April. So
well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I think that's important to share, Ms. Parks, because the lyrical side of Alan has always been there since the mid 70s. So I did all that as far as, say, collaborating through the late 70s, through the 80s, the 90s, into the 2000s, because that's really always been my passion. I'm fascinated with music. I'm fascinated with the stories that you hear in a song. I'm always trying to figure out what is it that you are saying to me as the lyricist with the message that you're conveying in the song. So that always has been my passion. It will always continue to be my passion. But a really strange thing happened beginning in 2015. I was retired at that time by about 3 or 4 years or so. I worked at one of my universities here in Omaha in teacher education. So I had retired about toward the end of 2011, somewhere in there. So in 2015, basically at this time, I'm just working part-time, just kind of doing hotel reservations in the morning to really kind of keep my mind active and everything and stay engaged mentally and intellectually. But the strange thing began to happen because in 2015, I'm sitting at my desk at my job, and my shift in the morning was from like 6 in the morning to about 11 or so. Being on Central Standard Time, since we're an hour behind the East Coast, and basically the California area is at least 2 hours behind us,
Mm-hmm.
between 6 in the morning and 8 in the morning, there's really not much to do. So I'm kind of sitting there. I'm not that guy who goes online to just play games. I don't play games on my phone. It doesn't really stimulate me. I don't see the point. But I just began to really just kind of start, I guess you would call it freestyling, just kind of writing down some thoughts and ideas and some concepts. And I remember that I wrote a couple of short essays for my first book, Here I Am, Lord, in mid 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit that when I wrote the first couple, Miss Parks, I remember getting up from my desk, going to get like some water, excuse me, and then coming back, and I couldn't remember what I had written.
Oh.
And it scared me. It literally scared me because I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? Because of my academic background
Mm-hmm.
and how I process information intellectually, because of my academic ties to college and to my job at the university, I'm used to doing things in a logical progression where there's a certain methodology to it. And that's how I do things. That's how I conduct my life.
Mm-hmm.
So this was completely outside the box where now I'm writing these short essays and I have no memory of what's going on after the first couple. I'll never forget, Miss Parks. I went and I talked to a friend of mine who was a pastor, and I was like, "Okay, dude, what's going on? Because I'm doing this. I'm writing these short essays. I don't remember doing it when I finish it. Am I okay?" And he said, "Well, Alan, I just want to ask you a question. You're being called by God through the Holy Spirit to now start writing in a whole different arena." He said, "Are you going to be open to that and be willing to do this?" Now, I'm going to confess for the audience, I told him yes. I did not say yes enthusiastically. I was jumping up and down. I was excited because I was.
It's kind of like a reluctant yes, like
It was very reluctant because
yeah.
again, Ms. Park, this is not what I wanted to do. I want to stay with my music, but this writing arena began to take off, and I kept writing and writing and writing throughout 2015. And I remember I shared a couple of the essays from Here I Am, Lord with a friend of mine, and she was like, "This is really nice. Why don't you write for a Christian blog?" And I'm going to be honest again with the audience. I'm 60 years old at this time, okay, in 2015. I have no idea what a blog is. She's saying a blog. I'm like, what's that? I mean, what are you talking about? So she had to explain this to me. She said, "This is what a blog is, and this is how this works." She said, "I need you to go back and Google it and research it." I said, "Okay, I'll go back and research it." So I spent about a day or so researching it, and then I said, "Oh, so how do I do this?" She said, "Well, why don't you reach out to several blogs and see if maybe you can become a writer?" I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And I only tried it really because she was bugging me about it, because she wasn't going to let me say no. And
Like,
just,
okay, okay, enough already. Like, let me
yeah,
go ahead and do it just so I can let her be
yes,
quiet.
just so
Yeah.
she would leave me alone. So I sent off a couple of my essays to different blogs around the world, and I think 9 or 10 of them said no, they weren't interested, which is what I was expecting. But I'll never forget that very last one responded to is called Christian Blessings, and they're over in Singapore, and this was about November of 2015. So I sent her one of my essays, and the editor wrote me back the next day by email. She says, "I like this. I want you to write for my blog, and I want you to write every week." And I remember I told her, I said, "Okay, wait a minute. First of all, I don't know what a blog really is. And secondly, I don't know about this writing once a week because I still don't know what I'm doing here." So I told her, Miss Parks, I said, how about once a month? She said, okay, I can go with that. And then she really scared me. She says, okay, for January 2016, I want you to come up with an essay, a short story of sorts, that's tied to the beginning of the year. And it needs to be 300 words. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, I can see what I can do. After I got the email, and I thought to myself, I have no idea what I'm doing. 300 words to me may as well have been 3,000, because I was thinking, there's no way I can do 300 words. So I remember after Thanksgiving, for about 2 or 3 weeks leading into Christmas, I was just scratching my head. I was panic stricken because it was due to her by December 31st. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll never forget, I was driving home in the snow from someplace, a store, December 27, 2015. And they were playing on the radio the song that a lot of us have heard, Old Lang Syne.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the lyrics to this, and again, this ties back to my lyrical side to show how God works. Part of the lyrics are, will old acquaintances be forgotten?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it hit me. I said, that's it. And so I submitted my first essay to her called Old Acquaintances for January 26th for Christian Blessings. Now, what Old Acquaintances is about, to just kind of give it a quick summation, is what are the old acquaintances that we need to rid ourselves of as we go into a new year? In my case, it was fear and a lack of faith that I had to kind of just brush away from myself.
And see, I'm sorry, Alan. I think that's important, because when you say acquaintances, a lot of people think what friends you have to get rid of. What are those associations, those people associations?
Thank
And it's
you.
not necessarily people
No.
associations. It's things that the fear, anxiety, all of those negative things that stop you from progressing.
That's
From
exactly it. And so the Holy Spirit had to expand my interpretation of acquaintances, like you said, because we can take, say, the fear or the lack of confidence, or something like, say, which is totally different, where maybe you have pledged to not procrastinate as much this year. But those things become such an integral part of our lives that they become like an acquaintance that's always there with us. Well, what do we do in a time and a place where we say this old acquaintance needs to be eliminated? And so that's kind of what I predicated that particular essay on. A lot of people liked it because they said, just like you said, I hadn't thought about acquaintances being something like that. They kept thinking about a friend or somebody they know. And I was explaining to them again, it's larger than that. So in my case, it had to be that acquaintance of, say, the fear and the lack of faith that I had to get rid of going into 2016. And so it turned out that beginning January 2016, I actually wound up writing for Christian Blessing in Singapore for 5 years, until the end of, I think it was in the 2021 or 2020, I think it was. So it just goes to show that it was really about, for me, as a part of this journey at that time in my life, it was about really taking those steps of faith and saying, okay, God, I'm not sure where we're going, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to try this and see what happens. And that really and truly was my attitude. So I wound up doing that for 5 years, writing for them. And then by the end of actually 2016, I had accumulated enough essays where I had 35 of these kind of stories, inspirational stories, I'll call them that. And so the same friend came back, she says, well, okay, when are you going to put them in a book? And so I'm looking and I'm like, I didn't have an answer. I'm just, and she was like, well, you can go online and you can kind of research this. So why can't you do that? So again, I'm looking at it, I'm trying to think of an answer to come back with, and I didn't have an answer. There was no reason why I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, let me try it. I have no idea how to be an author. I have no idea how to even get the stuff done. So going into 2017, previous to that, for my music, I had joined Fiverr. And I was using Fiverr really to look at some collaborative opportunities for me to create a song. And the Holy Spirit said, well, why don't you flip this and kind of look for somebody who could help you with your book? So I thought, oh, okay, I'll try. Well, I don't have nothing to lose. So I'll never forget the first Friday in February 2017. I sent on the request to Fiverr. I said, well, I have these stories. I want to put it in a book form. I need some help because I can write, but I don't know what else to do. And I'll never forget, Mr. Parks, I sent out that request that first Friday night, February 2017. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, maybe in about 8 or 9 months, somebody will respond. And maybe by the end of 2017, I can maybe get something started for 2018. That was my mindset going in. That's my natural mind thinking. The next day was Saturday, and I came back home, logged into my Fiverr account. 32 people said, yes, they want to work with me. Scared me to death because I was like, oh, God.
So you know what? Isn't that funny? We pray for something or we want something, and then when we get it, it's terrifying. It's like, oh, my goodness, I got it. So, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do about that?
That's exactly how it was. I was like,
when you pray, you better be careful be careful of the answer. Sometimes we're praying and we're not ready to receive the answer.
I was not ready because I thought, okay, God, I'm hoping for an answer, but when he hit me with 32 people, I was like, hey, I didn't need that many people, God. I mean, come on.
I just want 1 or 2.
I just need 1 or 2. I mean, this is a bit over the top. I'm telling God just like he's going to listen anyway, but I got to at least play out the string. So
let me ask you a question. So you wrote the blank canvas.
Yes.
And so I read that, and I think I read that before, and I loved it because I love what you said about it, because that's our life. It's kind of like when you ever had a class or you go to school and the teacher says everybody starts with 100, everybody starts with an A.
Yeah.
You have to try hard to get an F. And so I like what you said. When we're born with a blank canvas.
We all are.
What we do with it, we feel that canvas every day. I love that. What made you write about a blank canvas?
I think as much as anything, Ms. Parks, and this is from the third book, the ebook, Just a Closer Walk. And I started out the book with that chapter because it dawned on me as Holy Spirit had me writing for the third book, that this process, this journey as such, has been a canvas myself, which was blank as far as the authorship part of me, that has been filled over X amount of time beginning in 2015. So what I'm saying in this particular chapter is that all of us start out in life as a blank canvas. And over the course of each day of our life, each month and year of our life, we as that blank canvas are being filled in some shape, form, or fashion. It can come through, of course, our parents, our immediate family. It can come through, say, acquaintances and friends, associates. It can come through your schooling in the K-12 environment. It comes through the community that is a part of your growing process as a young person into adulthood. So that's really the point that I was making there. And the inspiration for that was really from a friend of mine who is an art teacher. And I've always been fascinated with his capacity to take a blank canvas, come up with an idea conceptually, put it on the canvas, and there it is. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I don't even see how you could do that, not recognizing that that's his talent and his gift. But that's really what kind of gave me the inspiration to write about a blank canvas. And so 2 paragraphs in this particular chapter, I think really sum up what a blank canvas is about in this book. And I'm just going to read it very quickly. It says, each of us at the beginning of our lives are that blank canvas. Starting with the very first breath, we came into this world as a blank canvas that is in the process of being filled. With each day, there's a portion of our blank canvas that is filled. It is filled with so many different things that are good and as well bad. But regardless, each day we will see our canvas changing. But then, how does the canvas itself know to fill? Does it do so merely on its own? To that, I would say definitely not, because God has seen fit to fill our canvas directly. And I also say indirectly through the experiences, the people, and opportunities that we become a part of throughout our journey from day one up until this very day itself. So, and that's really the image that I wanted to paint. I wanted people to think about the fact that you are a blank canvas. And also, as well, I think it's important in these last 2 years or so, particularly with COVID. Have you taken time to really just stop and think about maybe yourself as that blank canvas and how much God has filled for you during this time? And I think it's important, Ms. Sparks, as well, because of the last 2 years when we were quarantined,
Hmm.
we couldn't do things like even go to the grocery store or go to sports event. Did it really make you stop and think about the fact that, so many things that we took for granted,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
lost, and maybe it's giving us a better appreciation for the things that we took for granted? Hopefully, it's giving us a better appreciation for, if nothing else, just the fact that God has kept a lot of us from day to day, which a lot of times we take for granted. I know that I have. And so I think these last 2 years have really made me stop and think, there's so much that we have to be grateful for, because it's easy to think the blessings that you receive you're entitled to, but we're not.
That's that's really, I like that, entitled to. That's really important because the pandemic has been a lot of things. It has caused a lot of hurt, a lot of people have died, people are grieving, still grieving. People are sick, still sick, have
Hmm.
COVID, still recovering. I had COVID, still trying to recover, still trying to get back to where I was before I got COVID, and I wasn't 100% then. But if you did not, and if you're listening to the sound of my voice, if you did not use this opportunity as a time to do a self check, then you missed it.
You missed it.
You missed it. You missed the point. The point was not, yes, yes, there was COVID, and it upset the world. That wasn't the point. The point was using every opportunity to do things different. You're stuck in the house, you can't go to the store. What did you do? Did you sit in the house and become depressed and prude and whine and cry? Or did you use it as an opportunity? There were so many. I had a fire at my house
Wow.
during I had a she shed, or a she shed in my back. And so it caught a fire. There was a fire and burned it down. And it was, I mean, brick and mortar. And I couldn't use anything because what didn't get damaged in the fire, it got water damage
Uh-huh.
when they tried to put it out. And during that time, so I had to tear it all down. And during that time of COVID, there were about 15 men from my church with their sons. They came, and I mean, they had sledgehammers, and they tore it down and moved it completely out of the way. Okay.
Okay.
And when they did that, of course, I didn't rebuild that, but I have a privacy fence that burned down. Do you know it took months before I could get the material?
Yes.
And why? It wasn't that they didn't they it wasn't that people were sitting around trying to figure out what to do. There were people who used it as an opportunity to get those jobs done that they had been too busy to do. People were outside gardening because you couldn't go anywhere. You could go outside, but in your own area, people were gardening. People were doing those little home builder projects. They were painting. They were doing a lot of things it at home.
Mhm.
But those, whatever they were doing, the material at Home Depot made a killing.
Yes, they did.
They made a Home Depot, Lowe's, those places made a killing. So if you are not one of those people that decided, okay, you know what, this is the time for me to reinvent myself. This is a time for me to get closer to my family, to get to know my spouse, to get to know my children. If you didn't take that opportunity and ask yourself those questions, if you didn't pick up, I keep this mirror. If you didn't pick up this mirror and look at it and say, who am I?
Hmm.
you missed it. You missed it. And this pandemic was an opportunity for you to do that. How many people you know, Alan, that changed jobs?
Oh my gosh. Not just changed jobs, but lost their jobs.
Yes.
And that is in and of itself really scary.
Yes.
Because I know even with the part-time job I had working for this hotel chain here locally, the it was funny in a way because the pandemic essentially closed down our building. I'll never forget, Ms. Parks. We got an email in 2020, one Thursday morning at 11:30, and the owner of the building said he shut the building down at 5 o'clock that afternoon. And there were three other companies in that building. And so it blindsided all three companies. And we all had to look around and say, okay, what am I supposed to do now? And so they gave our company, gave the employees an option. Well, you can wait till they reopen the building, which might be a year from now or whatever, or you have to work from home. And I was one of those people who really and truly never, never, never wanted to work from home because I'm used to going to work. I've been doing that since I was 13, getting up and going to work and doing something. So when I was forced into working from home, that was a total 180 for me because it took me out of my comfort zone as far as, man, what am I supposed to do? I don't get up and I don't get dressed and I don't drive and
What do I do?
it threw me. But I tell you what woke me up. I remember about a week and a half after they pushed us out of the building, we started working from home. I'll never forget, Ms. Parks. Woke up one Thursday morning and we had about 11 inches of snow on the ground. And I just groaned. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, man, I've got to drive to work in 11 inches of snow. It's icy, it's slippery. And all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute. I just have to go down to the basement and log on my computer and go to work. And I thought, why did I do this years ago?
The light bulb came on. It's like, okay, this is not such a bad thing.
Wait, I don't have to shovel the snow and I don't have to worry about sliding up and down the streets and potentially wrecking my car. I thought
and just the cold, just being cold for me.
Well, cold for us in Nebraska, like back in February, one day I think it got down to 24 below.
See,
so
y'all play too much. Y'all play way too much with that for me.
But in our situation, as it is in the further northern states, this is just life.
Yeah.
You have to bundle up and you have to adjust because even that day when it's 24 below, people got up and they went to work. I mean, you had to let your car warm up longer or whatever, and you bundled up, and that's just how it is. So, I mean, you have to adjust. And one thing that COVID has done is it's made all of us adjust whether we wanted to or not.
Yeah, you better believe that. I was one of those ones who my job, they eliminated, what's the word? They eliminated my position.
Wow.
And so let me tell you, God is so good because so I have the publishing company. I didn't have the publishing company at that time. And I was at the Mayo Clinic when the pandemic first hit. And when I was there, the last time I was there, the doctor said to me, while you're not dying, you are suffering. So I didn't hear that. All I heard was while you're not dying, you are suffering. All I heard was you are suffering. I didn't even get all of the diagnosis, but that's all that stayed in my head. You are suffering. You are suffering. Well, that was my fourth time at the Mayo Clinic, and I knew that I was not going to be able to go back and work my corporate job. And I had a corporate job where I was in the office and I didn't have to stand on my legs. I didn't have to do any of that. However, because of the environment, I need to be able to create my own environment, to control my environment, the temperature and all those things. So when years ago, I started a mentoring program and I said, this program is so good. This is the best program in the world. It should be in every school system. In 5 years, In 5 years, I'm going to transition from my corporate job and I'm going to do this full time. So, how God works, and I didn't realize this as I was looking at painting the canvas and the blank canvas, as I was looking at your story, it came back to my recollection. So, 5 years, I said 5 years. That was in 2012.
Mhm.
2012 was when I started. 2013, 14, I was really getting it. So, the first year into my 5 year plan, I got sick and I had to go on medical leave. And I was just on medical leave for a few weeks. Okay.
Mhm.
The second year, the second year into my 5 year plan, I got sick again. I had to have some surgery. And this time I was out 3 additional weeks longer than I was the first time.
Mhm.
Okay. Still doing these programs, still saying this is a good program. Schools need to be these need to be in school. Year 3, Alan, I got sick again. And this time I was out longer than I was the first two
Wow.
times. Okay. Not realizing I'm going to transition, still doing my programs,
Mhm.
still doing my programs. Year 4, I'm like 4 years into my 5 year plan. I got sick again.
Wow.
This time I got sick in April. I was out from April to May, and got sick again, and was out from I went back out
Mhm.
and was out for an additional 6 more weeks. And
Ooh.
then I went back to work. This was going on 5 years into my 5 year plan, not thinking about it, not able to do those mentoring
Mhm.
programs like I could. And then I had to go to the Mayo Clinic. So I was out. I never went back. I did not realize when they said when they did the when they ended my when they eliminated my position, and I went in and we talked about the particulars. It was 5 years into my 5 year plan.
Wow.
So as I was I'm like, okay, 5 years. I know that I love that. I know that I want to do this. I know that I want to do, these programs are working. There's a proven record of success, but I'm still holding on because of fear. What you said, releasing that fear or whatever it was
Mhm.
not letting me, or I wasn't allowing it to let me step out on faith. So lo and behold, I got sick. I didn't have a choice but to step out
Well,
because with the pandemic, my position was eliminated. So I didn't move on my own, it moved me. And so now my position is eliminated. I have all the time in the world to do that which I love. And now here we are, fast forward 10 years later, 10 years. My programs are now, I just did some training in Duluth, Minnesota, where now they are putting my mentoring programs in their school system.
fantastic. Congratulations.
And so when we hold on to those things and not recognize the canvas that we have, and not paint that canvas, or not allow that canvas for or somebody to help us to paint the canvas, we kind of stand back and allow the canvas to go unpainted, or we allow somebody to dictate what it should look like.
Exactly.
And so I love this blank canvas, because and there are so many people, Alan, who are like you and who are like me. You hear that voice, you hear that still voice, and you're like, okay, what is this? And you keep you kind of go, because you get that nudge, and sometimes you can't ignore the nudge.
No, you can't.
So you put the pen down and you start lightly kind of writing into it and going, okay. And then, because we're still not sure, because we're used to the thing that we know.
Exactly.
We're not used to the thing that we don't know. So it's difficult. But when we finally get it, and when we finally trust God, it's like the best thing. And God is saying, okay, now you trusted me with the last thing. Now, why you trusted me? We did this, Alan. This is not the
Yeah.
first book. This is not the second book. Here we are. And it's human nature. And so I love the blank a blank canvas, and I thought about it because I call myself a Picasso. So I'm like Picasso because I'm painting, making those strokes and creating the narrative. So I like that you took it and you used the concept of a blank canvas because young people don't understand that, because sometimes parents don't understand that.
That's very true.
So the parents don't know that they're the ones that are responsible for painting that first canvas, because we all have more than one canvas.
Absolutely.
So painting that first canvas, if a young person doesn't get it, then as I'm looking, do this exercise with me, Alan.
Okay.
So we have a canvas, right? You have
Hmm.
your canvas, I have my canvas. So if you were painting your canvas from the last 24 hours of your life, what would it look like?
Wow. It would look like for me a lot of personal errands, number one, and number two, the coordination of different events I've got planned for August, September, and October. I'll confess that the last 24 hours, and I'm going to confess right here live on air that
So it's a million people listening, so go ahead and confess.
I'm 67. What am I? What am I
You
hiding?
ain't gonna get no whooping.
Hey, it's too late for me. It's too late for me to get a whooping. Well, maybe I don't want to say that. Let me retract that statement, y'all. But it's like the last 24 hours. Okay, as we were getting prepared for this interview, I'm like, okay, so now I got to do this StreamYard thing. And then you said, okay, I sent you the link. I'm like, okay, let me go back and find the link. Because for me, the last 24 hours is more than anything is, okay, all this newfangled stuff, because I sound like an old OG, which I am, it's really a challenge because you got StreamYard, you got the Zoom, you got the Cash App and all that. So I have spent the last 24 hours just trying to learn this stuff. I'm learning it as I go. I'm so blessed because I have a media person here. She's been so patient because there's been times I ask her a question. She's just like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Just listen. And this is how deep it got with her. I remember when I was doing the second book, In the Spirit Intended, and she traumatized me deeply because she said,
Traumatize you? That's a deep word now. How did she traumatize you?
traumatized me. Let me just explain why. She said, Alan, it's 2019. So when you write a sentence and you put your period at the end of it, you don't have to do two spaces anymore.
Right.
I was traumatized. I said, what do you mean? You always put two spaces at the end after a sentence, a period. She said,
Not
no,
anymore.
you don't have to do it anymore. And I'm telling you, it just freaked me out because, see, I'm from the era of the typewriter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I was trained, you put the period, you do two spaces. She says, well, I've got to get you to stop putting two spaces after the period.
I
And
know. I know. I
it
had somebody to do that. I had somebody to look over something to do some editing, and I was traumatized because I had to go back and I had to re-edit, and I was like, what? And this was the thing. There was not a double space. When she was looking at it and she was going over it, she was in the old mindset and she thought it should have been a double space. So she went through and marked everything that had a single space behind the period, and she added a double space. And I'm like, I was
mm,
so that I was traumatized just the opposite way. So I understand.
it's sort of like, again, it's these kind of things that we have to make the adjustment to because you're being pushed forward into a new time and space, whether you want to or not. I admit, in 2022, here we are, August the 4th, 2022, and I'm working on a closing for a radio show that I'll share with you some information about in a few minutes. And I still have to remind myself, Alan, you just need one space after the period. And it's hard because if you have been trained and taught to do it one way for 40 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
then when they change it, that's the trauma because you're like, what am I supposed to do? I don't I don't know what to do. I remember when I started working at the university, and I'm from the old school. Well, okay, every 2 weeks you get a check, and you get a paper check. And they were like, Alan, we don't pay people a check. We just deposit to your checking account. I'm like, wait, what you talking about? What? You mean you didn't give me no paper? They were like, we don't do it that way. And I was like, I'm sweating bullets. I'm like, and then they only paid me once a month. I was like, oh my Lord. I'm like, God, what have you got me into? I'm like, once a month and no paycheck. I was just about lost it. But again, I had to transition into a
Mhm.
new time and a new season. And I think that for all of us is always going to be a huge challenge, particularly for people who are older like me. The new kids, like your grandkids, we were talking before we came on the air, they pick up this stuff. They don't even blink an
Pandemic
eye at
babies.
it.
Pandemic babies.
They don't. It doesn't phase them.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
I
mm-mm.
remember my niece was talking to my sister. She was 3 at the time. So she's got the phone and she's telling my sister, okay, this is what you do here, 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 and here on and go to YouTube. She couldn't even read at the time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, how do you know this at 3 to go to YouTube here, click this button,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
put that button, download this? And I'm thinking, and it scares me because I'm thinking she's only 3.
My 15 is he 18-month-old grandson. He knows how to do the same thing. His 3-year-old brother, the 5-month-old baby knows how to look and grab and see what's going on. They clapping and they're talking and they're repeating. And here's the thing, the minds are so bright.
Yes.
They're already come and developed because they have access to so much that we didn't have access to. And the sad part is that there are the group that they don't take the opportunity to really develop their minds. And a lot of times parents feed sit and let the TV and the YouTube videos and all that babysit them, and those minds expanding, and they're being exposed to too much of the wrong things
I
too
agree.
early. So it kind of it's kind of a mix, it's kind of a mixed bag. So, I remember when I was coming up, you had to you couldn't watch TV. You had to eat, you had to do all these chores and all this stuff. And now, do children have chores anymore?
From what I understand, no.
Okay, okay, that's a
No.
no for chores. Okay. All right. So I guess my children's generation were the last ones to do chores.
Yeah, it might have been. I don't know what happened. I don't know where it went off track.
But if I'm drawing my canvas, it's funny because my canvas would be similar to yours. Over the last 24 hours, it would be filled with busyness, doing busy
Yeah.
things, and it would also be filled with some darkness, where there is some, and I say darkness where there's so much going on in the world
Yes.
that pulls at your heart. And that would be the darkness, because there's so much you can't do a lot about but pray about it.
That's all you can do.
And there's the darkness. I found out that a friend of mine's niece was killed by a boyfriend. And so there's a darkness. And mom's sick, there's the darkness. But as if I'm painting my canvas, and you guys follow this with me, here's my blank canvas, and here is the dark pieces. And it's almost like the outline of it is like curly dark, like dark clouds, little, but
Mhm.
not deep dark, just like lightness where it's kind of fading off. But in the middle, it's bright, and it's yellow, and it's orange, and it's lively, and it's light. And in the middle is what matters most,
Exactly.
because that's where the God is. That's where you are. That's where your strength is. That's where the story is. And as you go out, and the reason why the edges are like it's fading out, is because that light is pushing the darkness out. And as I think about a blank canvas, we have to allow our canvas to push the darkness out. And I think that's why I love your books. I love A Closer Walk. I love everything that you're doing, because you're allowing the light to push the darkness out. And so with that, people are healed by that. People are saved by it. There's comfort. So all those people, Alan, who didn't get a chance to take a look in this mirror and say, who am I during this pandemic? All of them that didn't get a chance to say,
You
oh, I
missed
see you, they missed it.
you missed
And if they pick up your book, they can get it.
And with my book, Miss Parks, the writing style, and people ask me about my writing style. I would say that without question, it's very down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's very identifiable. The chapter in there
It's
about a blank
relatable.
canvas,
Relatable.
it's relatable
Mm-hmm.
because I just think in these days and times, there is so much going on, like you said before. There are so many complications that are going on to the point where our heads are swimming. And sometimes you just need something where you can just wind down and just read something that's relatable,
Mm-hmm.
that you can say, oh, okay, I can see myself there.
Yeah.
One of the other chapters in the book that I think will speak to people is called An Ordinary Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And the summation of that is really about the fact that throughout this entire journey to get to the point of being a three-time author, it's really the story of somebody who's just ordinary and just a regular person.
Just a regular Joe.
I'm just an ordinary Joe that God decided to say, okay, this is what I need you to do. I've never professed to being a brilliant scholar. I don't profess to being a pastor or minister or apostle or anything like that. I've had people ask, well, so what church do you pastor, whatever? And I've said, well, I'm not. I'm just a regular person. And they're kind of shocked by that. But that chapter, I think, speaks to the fact that, and we've all heard it said, that God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
extraordinary thing that I've been blessed to do is to become a three-time author, but this is coming from somebody who's just a regular, ordinary Joe. And it's coming from somebody who didn't start this portion of his life until he was 60.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also emphasizing the fact in here that don't think because you're a certain age,
That you can't do it.
it's too late. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen people online in some different book organizations through Facebook. I read about one gentleman, I think he's 80, and he released his first book.
That's
I was
beautiful.
just thrilled. I thought, you know what? This gentleman is 80 years old, but he's always had, like you said, that nudging in his heart,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or he
Mm-hmm.
just had that something that was burning inside of him that made him say that, you know what? I'm only going to satisfy this when I go out and commit to doing it. And at 80 years old, he was talking about the fact that he had written his first book, and everybody was really dapping him up and telling him it was just an amazing story. So my
That's
story, that's a great story because
it
again,
is.
he just did something beyond the ordinary. He never gave up. He never gave up.
That's beautiful. And you know what? The time always goes so fast. We have just a couple of minutes. Tell people how they can get in touch with you and how they can purchase your book.
They can go to my website, which is alantblack.com. That's ALANTBLACK.com. That's my website. And they can see information about all three books. The first book is Here I Am, Lord. The second book, which is In the Spirit Intended, I was honored as a best-selling author for that book. I released that one in 2019. And then this third book, which will be ebook only this time around, is called Just a Closer Walk. So they can get information there. I'm also under Alan Black on Facebook. Even as a dinosaur, I'm learning to do things on Instagram. My media person said, you got to be on Instagram. So I'm under Alan T. Black 55. And yeah, the 55 is the year that I was born.
Okay.
And and I'm learning. I'm learning to move beyond a certain comfort that I've had throughout most of my life that we all have. And
Yeah.
I'm spreading my wings as such. Now, I'm not going to sit and tell you that it's all enjoyable because at times I'm like, what am I getting myself into?
What am I doing
Yeah,
here?
I'm saying, what am I doing? Like, okay, how did I get to this point? Because a lot of times, Miss Park, I really do shake my head even after this third book. And I do find myself thinking, I don't know how I got to this point, but I just thank God that you got me here because, frankly, this was not something, like I said, I had any plans to do. I never had any intention of getting to this point in my life or being in this arena. That
Mhm.
wasn't Alan's plan, but it ties back to Jeremiah 29:11, which talks about we have plans, but God knows the
We
plans
make
He
That's
has
right.
for
That's right.
us.
We making plans.
And His plans don't have anything to do with ours a lot of times. I found that out because I'm like, God, I want to do my music. I don't want to be a Christian Arthur. And He heard me out. He didn't pay me any attention.
But I
Nor
got plans. I got plans for you.
yeah,
You know,
I got plans that yeah, we're gonna do this and it's gonna
yeah,
work.
and it's gonna you're and you know what? When we follow God's plan, it's the best plan.
It is.
And it comes back around whether we like it or not. God's will is going to be done. Well, you know what, this has been an amazing conversation, and I am so grateful, Alan, for you stopping by and having this conversation. And we talked about a blank canvas and your new books. I love that.
Thank
Listen, if you are 100%, and Alan, we've talked about this before. I believe that 100% of everybody living and dead has a story.
you. Yeah,
100%. And so if you have a story, and I know that you do, and you need help with that story, reach out to me. I am LaQuita Parks, and I am the CEO and owner of Pay Pro V Publishing. And Pay Pro V is pain, progress, victory. Because I believe without pain, there is no progress, and without progress, there can be no victory. So I love helping people take their stories from a thought to a realization. So I can help you get started. If you have a story, don't know how to get started, I can help you get started. If you have started your story and you get stuck, because Alan, sometimes we find ourselves stuck. If
right.
you're stuck and you don't know how to get unstuck, reach out to me. I can help you get unstuck. And if you have written your story and you want to publish it, you're ready to publish it, reach out to me too. We can review it. We can talk about it. We can give you some feedback. And if you're ready to still publish, we can help you with that too. But here's the thing. It's not important that you publish with me. It's important that you tell your story.
Amen.
It's important that you share your story. It's important that you help people heal. We cannot be hoarders of our stories.
True.
Our stories, what happens in our lives is not for us. You're being inspired to write your books. It was not for you, because if that was the case, then it wouldn't have went any further than your pen and paper.
Thank you.
It would not have gone out across the world. It wouldn't have gone out in 3 books. It wouldn't have gone out in ebook. It wouldn't have gone out. So your book was not your story, and your inspiration is not for you. So write your story, share your story, tell your story. Find somebody. If it's not me, find somebody who, and I would love for it to be me, but that's fine. I can't publish everybody's story. If you need help and you need some coaching and development, we can do that too. um, when we tell our stories, there's healing. So this show is called The Power of Your Story. And sometimes people feel like if I tell my story, I'm giving my power away. Not at all.
No, no.
Not at all. You're restoring your power. So reach out and share your story. We have about a minute and a half. Alan, do you want to give us some closing words, some final words?
Final words I would say to our audience is this. Each of us are, in a lot of respects, that ordinary Joe. But what's important for us to keep in mind is that ordinary trait that we have is not going to completely define who we are or what we are capable of accomplishing. It's really about you taking that first step along that road and having the faith to say that, you know what, I can do this. And not accepting the fact that you aren't good enough, because that's a trick of the enemy. Don't buy that. Don't even begin to think about that. And one quick story, I'll try to get to this real quick. Think about the story of Peter walking on the water, something my father taught me. My father said, okay, Peter sank. I understand that. But he said, what did the rest of the disciples do? They stayed in the boat. He said, the boat is a place of safety. If you're going to accomplish something, you got to get out of the boat and walk on the water, because that's really where you're going to find your purpose.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. Stay in the boat. If you want safety, stay in the boat. If
Thank you.
you want some experience, step outside the boat. Step outside the boat and think of it as a box. Step outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Just tell your story. So Alan, thank you so much again. It has been a plump, pleasing pleasure. Better
Thank
than a
you
triple
so
deck
much.
of peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Well, you done made me hungry now.
Story, man, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Until next Thursday, we're here every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day. Be good. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Allow us at Eddie B Productions to capture, create, and celebrate all of your greatest moments. Let us turn your joy into memories that will last forever. As we remember our beloved Eddie Blick Jr., the very reason we do it all, we aim to put a smile on your face and also your heart. Whether a birthday party, wedding planning, organizing an event, or photography, we can service all your needs. You can follow us on Instagram at Eddie B Productions, email us at eddie_productions93@outlook.com, or call us at 410-303-0101 for all your event planning, decoration, fun, and photography needs. We look forward to working with you.